First up is a film called Cherry. It just came out on Apple TV+. It stars Tom Holland, and it is directed by the Russo Brothers. And it's based on a novel of the same name, which is semi-autobiographical, it sounds like. The author is Nico Walker. He was an army vet who served time in Iraq and then got addicted to opioids and then robbed some banks to try and pay for his addiction and went to jail. So it's some pretty heavy stuff. And I should start off by saying I like Tom Holland. I think he is a good actor. I don't blame him for this film, but between this and Chaos Walking, he is making some very questionable decisions. But I also get where he's coming from, right? You come off of working with the Russo brothers for all of these, Avengers films. They do really well. You're used to working with them. Or, a Doug Liman comes along for Chaos Walking. It's supposed to be this big breakout solo adventure film. Like, I don't blame him for choosing these films, but these films are very, very bad. In fact, after seeing Chaos Walking, I was like, it can't get worse. No, it got worse. Cherry is not a good movie. Just from an objective movie standpoint, it's not a good film. The book might be great. I certainly believe that the book could be told in a very harrowing way, but the translation from book to script to screen, something gets very, very lost. And I say this a lot. I think a lot of the times when you have directors who have huge successes, they don't get pushed back on a lot in like the editing room or even in pre-production or any of these stages or development. And so they get to do whatever they want. And what the end result is these sort of bloated films that really maybe somewhere in there was a good film, but because they've just been allowed to run rampant, you get something that's utterly pointless. So Cherry is just very ambling. And by the time we get to the war part of it, where he trains to become an army medic, which is it's a well-trod upon trope, the basic training stuff. But by the time we get there, we're already 40 minutes into a 2-hour and 20-minute movie. And I don't feel that invested in his character. The reasons, and again, I acknowledge that maybe in the source material, this is much more compelling, but the reasons that this kid goes to war is because like his girlfriend broke up with him temporarily. That just seems so rash. But again, because it's based on a true story, I'm like, all right, well, I guess this was a motivation for this person, but it wasn't explained on film in a way that made compelling sense. And then we go through the war stuff, and that feels very, it's unoriginal. We've seen this film a million times over of getting yelled at by drill sergeants and, the hair shaving and all this stuff. And okay, fine. And then we go to war, and the movie just has so many different acts. And I know, it literally has different acts in it. It has chapters. And by the time I got to like chapter 4, I was like, how many chapters are there? Because it's just so excruciating to watch, and not in a good way, right? There are plenty of films that are tough to watch and that make you squirm that are doing so because the actual filmmaking is compelling it, as opposed to relying on you being trained to feel uncomfortable in these moments. Holland's co-star is Ciara Bravo. I think she does a fine job. She's okay. People are singing her praises. I haven't seen her in anything else. This was okay. I don't necessarily blame the actors for this. I do blame the directors and the writers and the editors and all of that stuff. So I think the parts of this film that are maybe slightly more successful are once he comes home from war, you're dealing with PTSD, undiagnosed PTSD, and then the opioid addiction, and then the bank robbing stuff. And I'm not really spoiling anything. This is all in the trailers, and this is all in the story. Those parts were slightly more interesting, but again, relying on a lot of tropes we've seen before. But if you're going to rely on all of these tropes, you don't have to spend all of this extra bloated time in all of these setups, because you're relying on us being familiar with war stories, us being familiar with drug stories, us being familiar with bank robber stories, And so they weren't doing anything original, and they weren't doing anything new, and it felt very disjointed and not in an intentional way. And honestly, this was a really tough film for me to watch, partially because I was having tech issues, and partially because every few minutes I just went, I don't want to finish this. And I very rarely tap out of films, and I didn't for this one, but this is the closest I've ever come to just being like, I can't finish this movie. I cannot, in good conscience, recommend this to anybody. It's a very bad film. If you want a film about war, there are a million better films out there. If you want a film about PTSD, there are also better films out there. If you want a film about drug addiction, there are a bunch of better films out there. Like, I was thinking, if you just want to watch a bunch of people shoot up, which is a good, I would say, like 40 minutes of this film, go watch Trainspotting. I think Trainspotting is a much better story for that type of stuff. We've seen plenty of crime films about bank robbing and all that stuff. There are just a million better films. This film doesn't do anything well, is what it comes down to. And so there's no point in wasting 2 hours and 20 minutes of your life on it. So I'm going to give it 1 out of 5. And then the other thing I have to talk about this week is a TV show called Generation, except for the T is spelled with a plus sign, because that's apparently what they think the cool hip kids are doing. It just premiered on HBO Max, and I feel like HBO's goal in life at this point is to just make me feel old with all of the TV shows. And there's going to be some obvious comparisons to Euphoria, which is about, this show is about high schoolers. Euphoria is also about high schoolers. I think both of them are very intentionally centering around very modern, a little more rebellious teenagers. And so I felt there were a lot of kindred spirit moments. Justice Smith is the star. Martha Plimpton is probably the other biggest name in it. And then it's a bunch of teenagers who I've just never heard of. The show was created by a girl named Zelda Barnes. She's like 19 or 20 at this point, and it was co-created by her father, Daniel Barnes, which really I think means that her father created it, and they wanted to sell the story of this teen prodigy making a TV show. But what do I know? Lena Dunham, it turns out, is an exec producer on it, which I didn't find out until after the first episode, but having watched it, it makes sense. I am on the fence about the show. The first 3 episodes came out, and I think Justice Smith, it's really interesting to see him in this role. I think he's doing a really good job with it. He's playing this very sort of camp, I assume like junior or senior, who is a water polo star and also very out in his queerness and sort of flaunting it in the face of authority. And the storytelling is a little strange. It's a little non-linear. I think part of the thing I'm struggling with a lot of these shows is they are working very hard to make sure that they have a diverse cast. Like there are people from tons of different backgrounds in it, and their stories don't necessarily focus on that. I think it has a little more to do with sexuality in terms of their stories than race, but race is a factor. But the problem is that these shows are all created by white people. And, I don't know what the writer's room looks like for these shows, but I get the sense that the writer's room for Generation is a little more white than the one for Euphoria is, even though Euphoria is created by a white man and he's the showrunner and very in charge of it. I am probably going to keep watching this show, even though it makes me very uncomfortable and I can't relate to a lot of the high school drama in it. I think with a movie like Moxie, which came out last week, it's a very modern experience for them, but there are still themes that as a high schooler I related to. For this one, I'm like, oh, we are really trying to focus on the more extreme aspects of modern youth. They constantly show them texting, which the one thing I have to absolutely give them credit for, they show them texting in essentially real time. They're still pretty fast texting, but I hate it in movies and TV when people are typing just way faster and perfectly. And so there's a lot of moments of stories of, people sending the wrong thing and having to, scroll back and like send a little asterisk, I meant this and all this stuff. So that I can get behind. That felt like the most authentic part of it. It'll be interesting to see where this goes. If you are not comfortable with this type of stuff, this is not the one. I would say, no, you really got to break out of your comfort zone and watch this. I would say pick a Euphoria over this any day of the week. But if you're sort of just sitting around waiting for something like this to come back, I think it's okay to check out Generation. For now, I'm going to give it 3 out of 5, and it could drop down and it could go up as the season progresses.